Hello everyone, Karen Frankel here with you, getting you all drawing. I am very passionate on this subject. It came to me this week while I was teaching, and we've been studying flowers, and as the student showed me her work that she'd been working on, and I'd been working with her on how to improve it, that sort of thing, and I turned it around to show her, and she liked it, and then she turned it around to show me, and I just exploded and said, I can breathe! Now I can breathe! And it was quite a revelatory moment for both of us. So I thought I'd like to share some of that with all of you guys. The title is Create Breathing Space with Your Art. And I especially frame that by saying with your art and not in your art, because not only is it breathing space for you in your art, and I know that often many of you feel like that already, that you've got this meditative quality when you're drawing. But like my reaction to my students' work, it's also about creating a breathing space or allowing a breathing space for your audience, whoever's going to look at that picture. And even if it's only you that's looking at that picture later on, you're looking at it with different eyes. You're looking at it with the eyes of your audience rather than with the eyes of the person that was involved in that drawing right at the very beginning. So it's a bit of a double-barreled creating space for you as the artist and you as the viewer and for your audience. Okay, so I said there are 3 steps. Well, there's lots of ways in which you can do it, and I have collected that all together and honed it down to make it a bit easier into 3 basic steps. First step is about warming up. I'll tell you a bit more about it. Not only do we physically warm up our hands and our bodies, we warm up in our heads and our eyes as well. Second step is loosen up. Now, loosen up isn't the same as a warm up. Loosen up is how you do the work on your paper. And the third step is about creating a work, more a little bit about composition really, about composing a work. Even if you haven't done a thumbnail and seriously composed it, it's about creating a path that allows your audience to follow and move inside your work, okay? For their eye not to just go to one place, but for the whole place, the whole composition, the whole picture, the whole drawing, the whole painting, to provide a space for them to be in. First step is warming up. And I am very guilty of this, of not warming up. And it's something that will allow you to experience your drawing a lot more, but it will also help you to relax and enjoy your work, not only the doing, but the end result as well. So we can physically warm up as well. A little bit like an athlete or a sportsman, they will never go into a match, into a game, without first warming up their muscles. Even at low level, you know, kids, 6-year-old kids playing soccer, whatever, they'll always do their warm-ups and they'll flap their arms and that sort of thing. I guess you don't have to get that warmed up, but I do recommend that you actually be aware of your physical body, aware of how you're sitting, how you're standing if you're drawing at an easel, and I want you to be aware of moving right from the shoulder rather than just with your wrist, so that when you are warming up, you can do big movements with your hand, and that gets your body physically ready for drawing or for painting. Okay, so you don't have to do star jumps and that sort of thing. The second part of warm-ups within that same category is drawing warm-ups with your arm moving in a big way. How do you warm up besides this big arm movements that I've been telling you about, that you can't really see the whole of my body, but you get the drift with my hands going across the screen? The first thing to do is to find yourself something big and clumsy and chunky. You can see I've got a variety of things there. You can warm up with anything. It doesn't even have to write very well. This is running out. These are nice big chunky, they're actually called crayons, graphite crayons. That's a 6B, this is a 9B, and that's actually water soluble. This is a nice big watercolor marker. But you can see what they all have in common is that they are big and bold. That's just a kid's connector pen. You know, you can even get yourself a whiteboard marker. So for these warm-ups, big chunk of charcoal, something large and clumsy to a certain extent, something that you're not going to worry about having a tiny little pencil tip there and drawing tiny work. So what I want you to do for your warm-up, and you can see is that I've actually been using a piece of paper that I've been using for 15-second sketches that I've been doing on Instagram. So it doesn't matter what piece of paper you grab, you can have used it already. Sometimes that makes you loosen up a lot more. You can even do this on newspaper, and I want you to literally make big marks across your page. So use that big movement. That's the reason for this warm-up. And actually, no, it's not the reason for the warm-up. That's how we're doing the warm-up. So it makes it easier if you have a large item that you don't necessarily always use for your drawing. It also makes it much easier to do this sort of thing if you don't have a subject in mind. And I know that sounds a bit silly, but as soon as you've got a subject in mind and you start drawing flowers, your head starts getting involved. So I just want these random marks, and you can also try it with your non-dominant hand. The purpose of this is a warm-up, not an end result. That's your physical warm-up. Your second warm-up is about your observation and your eyes and your thinking. And what we actually want to do is to get rid of your thinking. And what I mean by that is the detrimental thinking, the brain that says this is what things look like. And if you've met me before, you know that I'm going to say do a blind contour drawing. It means grabbing whatever tool you're using to draw. It doesn't matter this time if you're getting an ordinary pencil, and just very briefly you are going to follow the edges of something that you're looking at without looking at your drawing. And this particular rule for this exercise means don't lift your pencil up either. So in fact, I'm going to do a quick contour drawing as you are watching me do it, of the camera that's staring me in the face. And you'll see that I don't look down at my piece of paper and I don't lift my pencil up. Now, usually when you do these things, you work a lot more slowly than what I'm doing. But can you see that I'm keeping my pencil on the page and I'm not lifting it off as I go from one thing to another? I'm trying not to worry about what things look like. All I'm doing is responding directly to little lines that I see on the camera. And I can go into even smaller lines if I really want to. I can, write the letters, which I always suggest that you don't bother with. You can even go into shading. And if you do this without talking, which clearly I'm not, what happens is your eyes focus in on what it is that you're drawing. Your brain forgets about what things should look like, and your pencil automatically follows those lines around. Now, the purpose of this, as I said, was about relaxing, about getting your eye in, getting your brain into gear for drawing. It's warming up. So it's not about what this looks like in the end, but sometimes what it looks like in the end looks brilliant. So even though that doesn't look like a magnificent camera, at least it looks like a camera. All of that will lead to your picture not being tight, which leads to it having space. So the next step is about loosening up. How would you tackle something loosely? So we need to have the impression at the end of the day, or at the end of our drawing, at the end of our picture, where it doesn't look particularly try hard. Often people will draw whatever it is that they want to draw. Can't believe I'm getting stuck for things to draw. And once they've done that, they will, by habit, put a heavy outline on those drawings that they've done. And for those especially who've met me before, you will know that I'm not a fan of doing that as a habit. I am a fan of doing it deliberately, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. I often bring up the subject of Cézanne because when you look at his still life work, it does indeed look like he has got outlines on all his work. And he clearly, deliberately places lines in his work. I often deliberately place lines on my work, but I want to show you what the difference is between doing it by habit and outlining, which leads to a tight work and not a work in which people can breathe, and doing a work that actually looks loose and inviting, and you can breathe within that work. You can see that not everything has the same weighted lines. So I'm now outlining his fruit with big pink lines, but you can actually see, if I get rid of that, that there are lots of places where the line is not completely formed, and there's a soft edge there, and actually that's a very soft edge there. There's a hard edge, strong line there, showing that weight of shadow, but there's no strong line there. There's a little bit of a strong line on that orange, but it's gentle. I just contradicted myself. There's a line there, but it's gentle. The strongest line is probably on this man-made metal jug. There's a strong line coming forward that helps us with perspective. There's a gentle line going back, but you can actually see that it is not mechanically just outlined everywhere. So that is an example of a beautiful work. And when I say allow us to breathe in a work, I don't necessarily mean, you know, this relaxing picture of the mist. Every single picture, regardless of the subject, every single artwork, every single photograph that is crafted, that is composed by a photographer, can have this breathing space. We can actually go in and out and around. We don't feel constrained by anything. Okay, so that's an example of being able to put lines on deliberately, but not put them on by habit, which leads to very a tight looking work that we feel caged in on. So that's a biggie with me. Here's another example of how I started, and this is also stick with ink. So remember me talking about clumsy tools with which to use so that we don't get all tight. And in this particular case, I have placed my colored paper down first. You can see that my finished object, my finished painting, also has black lines around it, but like Cézanne's, there you go, how about that for ego? I'm comparing myself to Cézanne. Not all of the lines are there. The natural pear and the mangosteen, I think that fruit is called, haven't got dark lines everywhere, whereas the teapot, the lines are a little bit stronger because that's a man-made item. This picture, I must say thank you to Rose and Myrtle. She's on Instagram and she is a florist, and I asked her permission if I could use this beautiful, beautiful photograph to demonstrate quickly to you. So if you were tackling something like this to help with the looseness, even if you were drawing with a soft pencil, I would be moving my pencil in loose ways, establishing shapes of these flowers. There's cylinders. If you want to know how to draw flowers, I do have a video on drawing flowers. Now I'm just looking, you can't really see that because I'm drawing so lightly, so I will have to go in a bit more firm. But can you see how I'm not being particularly precious about this? I'm not rubbing anything out. I'm not being try hard. I am just putting in the loose flower construction, if you will. And then I can come back in and adjust and go, okay, where's that center there? These flowers are all about negative shapes, and the negative shapes are on the outside of the flowers. So I'm working very loosely. I want to keep that sense of space, even if those spaces are just between the flowers. I don't want to close anybody off from moving around this work. Moving on to the very last step as we step in to work. We seem to be able to find a path around. Now that path can be led, or we can walk down a path of line work that is running all the way through. So that's what I alluded to when I said when we're drawing with contour drawing, you don't lift your pencil up. Now I'm just playing around with this to find a composition that's not necessarily of flowers, okay? So I'm using my warm-up, my sketching, to try and move around this composition. And I'm hopefully finding a path through for my viewer. I'm going to lead the viewer's eye back in. Now that I've put that harsh line, my head's saying, no, you're actually closing in. So it's not an exact science. I often say that. But as drawers, we are constantly adjusting to make things work. So even ending up something with as complicated things like this, it hasn't really ended up as flowers, although it started out like flowers. I personally don't feel that I have closed any doors there. As an audience, as a viewer, I'm kind of feeling like I'm allowed to breathe in this. Even though I'm going into a bit of a tangle here, there is a path to get out of it. There's a path in. Is there a path out? Or maybe I can go around. So you need to play with it, play with your feeling of what that looks like, so that you don't actually close yourself in or close your audience in. I hope that you take something from today's tutorial. I hope that you find that space. I hope that you warm up into that space. Don't feel that you have to outline everything and work within a tight area. And I hope you allow yourself not to necessarily copy everything that you see religiously, and just free yourself up, which will then in turn allow your audience to feel that freedom when they look at your work. Thanks for joining me. Karen Frankel saying, get drawing, signing out. Bye-bye.